Locho sampo pa gyo trashi pa tuche tempe tinle yarngoda pelge drolor zampe ze parache palde lame shabla solvade Omo a guru vajra dara suma timonisha sane karm Uta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Guru Vajradhar Suma Timo Nisha Sane Karm Uta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Guru Vajradhar Suma Timo Nisha Sane Karm Uta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Om Guru Vajradhar Suma Timo Nisha Sane Karm Uta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Pakyuke Kudan Dagi Lu Pakyuke Sundan Dagi Nga Pakyuke tudan da geyi, yerme çıktı cingiyalo. Makyuke kudan da gelo, makyuke sundan da genga. Makyuke tudan da geyi, yerme çıktı cingiyalo. Om muni muni. Mahamuni Shakyamuni Svoha Sangye Chedan Tsoge Chanamla Chanchu Bhardo Dani Kyapsuchi Dagi Jinso Gibe Sonamgi Drola Pinchire Sangye Druparashu Sangye Chedan Tsogi Chonamla Chanchu Bhardo Dani Kyapsuchi Dagi Jinso Gibe Sonamgi Drola Pinchire Sangye Druparashu Sangye Chedan Tsogi Chonamla Chanchu Bhardo Dani Kyapsuchi Dagi Jinso Gibe Sonamgi Drola Pinchra Sangye Druparasho. In the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, I take refuge unto enlightenment. Through the practice of generosity and the other perfections, may I attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. Page 7, we make the initial prayers. Tuje shogi tsonye tarachinte dripche mumpa sanshin chukunke nigi si kandrola sezepa drokyo bala me tube wampuradu Chitu drola champal haradzepe Tu sumo kuntu chamkun shetrapa Gyalwe gyatsa mi pangom pola Nine kube yigi chagito Dewara shepa nigi luntenshin Sabdan gyache tube lu sampo Salze shinta cheshe rabatrapa Tamlin gendru choni la chatse Kare rawe korwe yun chondir Degyo gondre dapton gebetsel Sartu shela gyalwe ni madang Tsumpara nga we jamkun la maradu Kangi chile we siraton samanki Lam santa we milo mi sälwar tsül lama ni mura chebe Dani pe me sindrur tatu shun. By accomplishing the two accumulations through the power of compassion, the obscure of darkness is cleared and all phenomena are known. Whatever seen by you, you make it clear to my greatest. Munindra, Lord of the sages, unsurpassable refuge, to you I pay homage. Unique love for my greatest, which is embodied as a deity, renowned through the three times as the Lord of love, to the invincible protector, regent of the victorious, with respect from my heart I prostrate with my mind. You have been prophesied by the Sugata, the one gone to bliss himself, the profound and vast pure traditions of the capable one. By making them clear, you are renowned as the great chariot way openers. To the 6 ornaments and the 2 excellent ones of this world I prostrate. In this land surrounded by a range of snow mountains, a garden blossoming with thousands of petals of sutras, tantras, and commentaries is refreshed, by making you like the son of the victorious. To the praiseworthy Guru, gentle protector, Lama Tsongkhapa, I pay homage. By seeing just a ray of light of your spiritual actions, you make the mind's eye for seeing the pure path clear. Venerable Guru, light that shines like the sun, please remain always at the center of the lotus of my heart. Pagina 11, page 11. Korde kyenye amale pa semle chungwa yine she Tube shirabale shepe ludra namche chenamge semge sande she parace. I difetti del samsara e le qualità del nirvana senza eccezioni derivano dalla mente, come detto negli insegnamenti del Buddha. Coloro che hanno intelligenza e discernimento devono dare importanza alla conoscenza dei segreti della mente. The defects of samsara and the qualities of nirvana, without exception, derive from the mind, as said in Buddha's teachings. Those who have intelligence and discernment must give importance to knowing the secrets of the mind. Okay. We are then in page number 34. And the next mental factor is arrogance. Okay. So arrogance we have. Naga kanshena jigsola tawala tene sim kemba te mikuba da dunga junga ke tenchebe leje no noram yonde so kembe shi kanro rela meekness sim kembe namba chenge semjung. What is arrogance? Based on the wrong view of the transitory collection, which means the wrong view of oneself, seeing oneself as inherently existent, basically. The mind is inflated. It has the function of being the basis for disrespect and suffering to arise. It is the mental factor that has the aspect of being inflated by focusing on an object, such as one's wealth or one's qualities and so on. It's the mental factor with the aspect of arrogance, the sense of superiority. Okay, so it's the mental factor with the aspect of arrogance, with the that it has the basis on the I and the my. So what is this arrogance? Basically, arrogance is based on the aspect of comparing oneself with others. It comes from that. It comes from the fact that we put to compare ourselves with others, and we feel superior to others based on something that we feel that we have better. It can be because I am more beautiful. It can be because I have more money. I am more intelligent. Because I am better than you because I am more humble than you. I am better than you because I am more spiritual. I am better than you because I am more simple. Whatever. Okay? But it's when we put ourselves with an attitude of superiority in relation to the other. And this is extremely harmful to us, because wherever there is arrogance, it is naturally bringing to us also this aspect of first not respecting others, not being able to learn from others. Okay? Then at the same time, it is very painful, because whenever we are always comparing ourselves with others, then we're never relaxed. It's always tense. It's always tense, always needing to compare oneself with others, always needing to force this and trying to say, okay, look, I am like this, I am like that, who is better, who is not. Also because whenever we have this attitude of superiority, it means at the same time we have the attitude of feeling inferior to someone else also. So because we feel inferior to someone, we need to find someone that we are superior to. And it's a constant thing. So where is the key? The key basically is the fact of stopping to compare ourselves with others. I am myself with my qualities and my defects. You are yourself with your qualities and your defects. And that's just fine. That's just how it is. And it's beautiful like this, okay. You know? Because it's extremely tiring always to stay comparing ourselves with others. Okay. So this mental factor of arrogance, which is a root negative mental factor, it does not allow us to learn things, because actually we have a lot to learn from each and every person that we meet. But because we put ourselves with arrogance and superiority, then we don't learn. No, from whom? What can I learn from you? Nothing. We just look to others in a way that we close ourselves, and we're not able to see the qualities of others, and by that we cannot receive so much also. There is one saying, to conclude this part, I really need to control myself not to go long, which says, in the top of the mountain of arrogance, the water of the rain does not remain, and the flowers of realizations do not grow. While in the valley of humbleness, of humility, the water of the teachings remain, and the flowers of realizations can grow. Okay? So, truly, who are we to judge others? Who are we to understand what is in other people's mind, what is in other people's actions? We have no truly basis for that. So, it is important in this for us just to remember not to judge others, not to compare. The key is not to compare ourselves with others. And the more we do that, the more we relax. So we should not feel superior or inferior. We are just ourselves, and the others are just themselves. And each one of us is on our own path on that. Okay. Next one. Ignorance. Ignorance in Sanskrit is called avidya. Avidya literally means not to see, not to be able to see. Okay? Not seeing, which means avidya, it's the negation, vidya means to see. So not seeing, it means the meaning of ignorance. There are basically two types of ignorance. The ignorance of not seeing and the ignorance of seeing wrong. Okay? So, here in the text we have translated as the ignorance of not knowing and the ignorance of grasping erroneously. So it's the ignorance of not seeing and the ignorance of wrong seeing, okay? Of seeing it wrong. So basically, here it refers mainly at this context to two types of ignorance. One ignorance of not seeing and the other one of wrong seeing, which is basically the ignorance of not seeing is the ignorance in our inability to see the law of cause and effect. When we are experiencing a result, we have no idea where is it coming from, truly. When we are making an action, we have no idea what result it will bring. Okay? So we are not able to have the awareness of the relation between cause and effect. This makes us to act without being aware. This makes us to act without having clarity of our own actions. So this is the first ignorance that causes suffering also. Because we are able to learn with our own actions. If I put my hand on fire and I feel the pain and I can see the connection between the fire and the pain, I'm not going to repeat it. But if I do something and I cannot see the connection between what I am doing and the sensation of suffering that I'm having, I'm going to repeat it most probably, many, many times. Okay? So, we can see many examples of this, but I'm being careful not to go into details. So basically, this is the first type of ignorance, which is the ignorance of not seeing. And then we have the worst one, which is the ignorance of wrong seeing. The ignorance of seeing things in a way they are not. The ignorance of grasping to reality in an incoherent manner, in an inconsistent manner. So, what is that? For example, I will give two examples. First one is impermanence. We live in a world that is impermanent, right? Everything that is around us, everything that we see, everything that we touch, everything that we can perceive around us is impermanent. It's in constant change. But when we meet someone and we say, okay, we will see you again after 2 weeks, who do we expect to see? The same person or someone slightly changed? The same person. Is it possible to see the same person? Actually not. But we expect to see. When we go away and from one place and we come back after some time, which place do we expect to see? The same place. And like this we can go on and on. What does it mean? Even though the reality in which we live is impermanent, it appears to us as if it was permanent. And we grasp to it as if it is permanent. Okay? So again, this is the ignorance of seeing wrong. We see as permanent what actually is impermanent. And this creates suffering because in the moment that the impermanence becomes so clear that the mental image we have cannot anymore be sustained, then very often we suffer. We get upset because why things are like this, they were not supposed to be like that, and so on, okay? So this is the first type of ignorance. This is one example of the ignorance of seeing wrong. The other example, which is the more deep one, of this inconsistency between the way how things are and the way how we see them, is the fact that we live in a reality that is totally interdependent. Okay? Where things depend on cause and conditions, depends on their own parts, depends on the relation between the basis of imputation, which is the union of the parts, and the observer, the imputation of the name. But we don't have awareness of that. When we see something, for instance, when we listen to a beautiful sound, okay? We listen to a beautiful sound, and then in our mind, how do we perceive the sound? Oh, how nice is this sound? And then are we aware that the sound is the union of the vibration in the air plus our ear sense power plus our ear sense consciousness? and then there is the discernment and the sensation, and through which that's what we say, oh, what a nice sound. Are we aware of that as we listen to the sound? No. So how does the sound appear to us? As being something inherently existent, or as being something interdependent in relation to the observer also? Inherently existent. So if I listen to a nice sound, what do I generate through that? I want to listen to it again. Because for me, it is something that is bringing me joy by its own characteristics, by itself. So I generate attraction to it. Okay. So what happens is that when we listen to a sound that we don't like, okay, then what happens? We don't want to avoid it. Because we think that that's creating us suffering. Because we see the sounds as something that exists in an inherently autonomous way. So basically what happens is that every experience that we have, we see something, we listen to something, we touch and so on. And then the reality around us, even though we live in a relative, which is in a subjective reality, the subjective reality appears to us as if it was objective. The sound does not exist for me independently of myself. Okay? So what happened with that is that even though it is like this, it appears to us. Even though the sound appears to us, it is subjective, it appears to us as if it was objective. And this makes us to see that I have nothing to do with the objects around me. So if there is something not nice, I have nothing to do with that. If there is something pleasurable, I have nothing to do with that. So what happens is that by seeing ourselves as being independent of everything else and everything independent of us, we create a dependence. Okay? So we live as, in order for me to be happy, I need to have this, and that. In order for me not to suffer, I need to eliminate this, and that. Okay? So from this non-interdependent way, what we create, this attitude, constant way of attraction and aversion. I listen to a sound, the sound is beautiful, I have nothing to do with it, I want to feel the same nice feeling again. What I have towards the sound? Attraction, which makes attachment, desire, and so on. I see something that I don't like, I experience something that I don't like. What is the cause of my suffering? The thing. So what I need to do, I need to eliminate that. Then what happened to that? We generate aversion, anger, and so on. So basically, from attraction and aversion, we get jealousy, fear, miserliness, arrogance, and so on. So suffering. So this ignorance of seeing reality as being objective, autonomous, independent, when actually reality is subjective, relative, interdependent. That's the root of all our suffering. Okay? And this is something that I'm not going to go into details right now. Okay? But it's something that we need to dedicate time and again and again. But this is the first meaning of ignorance itself here. Okay? So the key for us to eliminate ignorance is to reflect and to realize the interdependence. Is to see how everything is interdependent. How even though the reality appears to us as if it was objective, actually it is subjective. So what is the key here? To see the subjective reality as being subjective. To see the impermanent reality as being impermanent. Okay? Instead of seeing the impermanent reality as permanent and the subjective as objective. Okay? Next one is called tetsum, which is translated as indecisive wavering. Indecisive wavering. Indecisive wavering is also translated sometimes as doubt. Okay? But it's better indecisive wavering, because it's the mind that is not able really to stay into something and is constantly making questions about it. Not in the sense of seeing what I don't know and wanting to know what I don't know. This is doubt, which is good also. In this case, it's not trusting one's own experience and not trusting one's own understanding. So then always there checking, oh, but is it really like this? It's not like this. Oh, but what if it may be in that other way, and if this, and maybe it's not in that way. So it's like really uncertain. And it can be manifested in many different levels. Even from the level, okay, where do I go? I go to the mountain or I go to the sea? I do this or I don't do this? And then we are there, I do or I don't do? I go or I don't go? I say or I don't say? Come on, Oh, because maybe if I do this, there will be a problem here. Maybe if I do that, there will be a problem there. Relax. Whatever you do, there will be problems. There is no perfect solution in life for anything. So, this indecisive wavering, it's also very much connected to fear. Because if we observe fear, do we ever fear something that is related with the present? Or we are always fear of something that may happen? Where is the fear directed? To the present or to the future? To the future. Our fear is always something, oh, maybe this, maybe that, who knows? Maybe sometimes I fear we even don't know exactly of what. But it's something more related always to the future. Okay? So this indecisive wavering is very much connected to fear. It's very much connected to this aspect of what may happen if this, if that. So it's this lack of certainty, lack of stability. Okay? And this is also something that we need to be very careful about. It is a mental defilement, a mental factor that creates a lot of suffering. And also in relation to our Dharma practice, it is very important to avoid it. Because one of the very important things in the Dharma practice is to be decisive. Is to be certain in our path. Because one thing is to know what I don't know. Another thing is to stay there in between. Oh, what is it if it is? What if that? Maybe I do this, maybe I don't do. Oh, maybe yes, he's my guru. No, he's not my guru. Oh, yes, I like this path. I don't like this path. I do this practice. I don't do this practice. Is it good for me? Is it not good for me? Choose. We need to follow in a decisive way. This makes a big difference in our spiritual path. It's very important, actually. That's why it is said that we can take a long time before choosing a guru, but once we choose, we need to be decisive. No doubts anymore about it. And it's also the one story which I remember, that there was one talking about the qualities of not being indecisive, the importance in the practice of Dharma of being decisive. And it was one practitioner, a disciple from one master. And from all the disciples that were always there, he was the one that was the least intelligent, not understanding very much the teachings. And in Brazil we use one term which we say coffee with milk, which is a term that is used with children. So when we have children playing together, if there is one child that normally is quite younger than the other ones, that don't understand the rules of the game, because of the age, that does not understand the rules of the game, but still want to play, not to exclude the child, we say, okay, oh, this child is coffee with milk, which means this child will be in the game, but don't need to respect the rules of the game. Just let the child be there together. Okay? So this monk, he was treated a little bit in this way from the others. Like, he couldn't understand well the teachings, but he was present there, but he really was not understanding much what was happening. He was not intelligent at all. So one day, the master was about to go for a travel, and then on the corridor, on her way going out, the disciple came to the master and said, oh, my guru, my kind guru, please give me what is the practice of my life. And then the guru made a joke, because, this is the worst moment to make such a question. No? So the joke that he made was, meditate so that a horn can be grown on your head. But then what happened, he came back after 6 months from the traveling. He didn't see any more the disciple around. So he thought, maybe he got offended. Sorry. And then anyhow, passed 3 years and he didn't see the disciple at all. So one day he asked some other disciples to go to look for him. And they came back saying, the people in the village say that he's in some mountains meditating. So I said, please, you go to check for him, check if he's fine or not. So they went up to that place, were 3 days walking to get there. They found him meditating, and he had a big horn in his head. And then what happened was that they came back another 3 days walking back, and then they said to the master, Guru, no, he's there, he has a big horn in his head. He said, okay, now I remember. Okay, so please tell him now please tell him to come back here. So they went there 3 days walking back again. And they said, please, the master is calling you back. And then they said, sorry, I cannot come because I would love to come because the horn got so big that I cannot get out of the cave anymore. So he said, okay, then they went 3 days walking back again. They said to the master the answer. Then the master said, okay, tell him now that my instruction is now for him to meditate to eliminate the horn from his head. So they went back 3 days walking again. And then when they reached there, they told him to this. And in 3 days, he was able to make the horn disappear. So he went back to the master. And what happened is that in this process, he passed these 3 years only meditating. The horn in my head. That's what my guru told me. And he was not meditating in bodhicitta. He was not meditating in emptiness. He was not meditating in impermanence. Just the horn in my head. That's the only. But he developed single-pointed concentration. He developed the very clear mind and very good level of concentration. And because of so much faith, so much certainty, so decisive he was able to do it. So when he came back to the master, then the master gave him the instructions of Dharma, but his mind was so clear and so sharp based on his concentration that he was able then finally to understand the teachings, and he was able to gain the realizations before the other ones. That normally was the most intelligent ones. So this is one example that is given in the teachings often to show the importance that it's more important to be decisive than to be intelligent. It's more important truly to follow what we are able to understand and to know than to understand everything. Instead, very often we want to understand everything, then sometimes by understanding too much we get too many doubts also. Because then we don't trust anymore, because we have one understanding that is maybe incoherent with the other, because we don't have a true, clear understanding. And then we are always making doubts, always if this is like that, and if it's not like this, is the practice correct in this way? And what if I do? Maybe that other practice will be better. Isn't it better if I do that other way? Isn't it better if I do? And we never do. So it's important to be decisive in what we do, just to follow. Okay, there are other stories about this, but we don't go through them right now. So this mind, which is this indecisive wavering, it means the lack of trust in one's own experience and in one's own understanding also. Okay? And this is said to be one of the greatest interferences for the practice of Dharma. And is the basis for fear also. Okay, we go to the next one. So, the next one, which is the last of the 6 root mental defilements, is called deluded views. And this will be easy to explain because it is one of the things that or we go really into details and time or just make it very simple. There is no middle way to explain it. So I would just go very simple, okay? So first of all, deluded views is the way how we see reality in an inconsistent way from what reality actually is. Okay? Generally, we can divide our mind in 2 aspects, which is the part of conduct and the part of view. For example, the aspects that we saw of anger and desire is more connected to the conduct. The conduct is the way how I relate to the world, while the view is the way how I see reality. It's the world view that I have. So the inconsistent views that we have are called diluted views. Okay? And here there are 5 main diluted views that are named here, which are view of the transitory collection. And here the view of the transitory collection is called in this way to show exactly the opposite. Sometimes this is done. It's like, I don't know, like let's say if we say to someone that is doing things in a wrong way, oh, there comes the big intelligent one, you know. Oh, there comes the great intelligent one. What we may mean when we say the great intelligent one? That he's not intelligent at all. So sometimes we say something because we want to bring to the opposite. No? So here is this case. When we call here the view of transitory collection, it's showing that our own, it's related to our own identity. It's because our self, we are transitory, we are impermanent, and we are made of many, many, many parts together. We are interdependent. That's why it's called collection. We are made of a collection of parts at the same time. Okay? And the wrong view is the view that sees oneself as not being transitory and not being a collection. So, it's the view that sees oneself as being permanent and that views oneself as being autonomous, independent, objective, and not interdependent. Okay? And this is the basis of all other wrong views. Then we have the extreme views. The extreme views, Tarta, is basically eternalism and nihilism. Eternalism is to believe that things exist by their own selves. Okay? It's seeing that reality exists independently of the observer. So things exist just by themselves. And the extreme of nihilism is seeing that reality does not exist at all. Or is just in the mind and reality does not exist. This is the extreme of nihilism in very, very few words. Then we have Tawa Chokzin, holding false views as supreme. Is when we have false views, for example, seeing that it's through violence that we can gain good results, that we can make peace. War is the way to peace. Is by lying, then I will get everything that I want in my life. Is selfishness is the best way for my own happiness, and so on. These are all examples of holding a false view as supreme. So we think that that's the best way. Okay? It's through material development that I will get happiness. That's holding a false view as supreme. And I will hold it strongly and I will do everything to make it. Okay? And here we can have many examples of it. Then the next one is called Tsül dan Tulshu Chokzin, holding a wrong code of conduct as supreme, which means behaviors that are harmful to ourselves, but we think that they are beneficial. They are from things that are within religions and strange things, let's say, just inventing something stupid. If I believe that, okay, every day I need to jump early in the morning at the sunrise time, I need to jump 5 times on my left foot and then bang my head 5 times in the entrance door of my house. And by doing that, I will eliminate all suffering and reach the liberation from suffering. So every day I go in the morning, I wake up before sunrise, I go in the moment of sunrise, I jump 5 times in my left foot, and then I go and I bang my hand 5 times in the wall, okay? In the door. The wall would not work in the door. So if I believe that, and I do it, will that make me eliminate my suffering? No. So it's a wrong view, holding a false, something that is not really beneficial as supreme. But this is just making one stupid example, but we can have so many examples. Sometimes we eat in a way that is harmful to us and we believe is the best way for us. We have lifestyles that are harmful to us, but we believe that are good to us. And we hold dearly to them. Okay? So basically, this is the point. Having behaviors and lifestyles that we believe are good for us, but actually are harmful to us. Okay. And the last one, which is called lotak, wrong views, is where we hold things that exist as being non-existent, basically. So we believe that karma does not exist, we believe that reincarnation does not exist, we believe that phenomena are not interdependent. We hold to reality in a way that not like negating things that actually do exist. Okay? This is what we call here generally wrong views. So this is a very general explanation of this, just very, very, very simple and brief. But the basic point is that the way how we see reality influences completely, totally our own life. So what are wrong views? Making it very simple is all the inconsistent views that we have with reality. Are all the views that we have about reality which cannot be sustained by reality. Okay? So this is what we call basically wrong views. Okay? Now we go to the next. Otherwise, then if we start going into more details about this, then it takes the whole day, which is okay also, but it's not our case today. So next we go through the 20 secondary afflicting mental factors. The 20 secondary afflicting mental factors, they come from the 6th root afflicting mental factors. They derive from them, okay? And basically they are spite, resentment, concealment of improper behavior, aggression, envy, miserliness, pretension, dissimulation, self-satisfaction, cruelty, lack of consideration for oneself, lack of consideration for others, foggy-mindedness, excitement, non-faith, laziness, non-conscientiousness, diluted forgetfulness, non-alertness, distraction. So now let's see one by one. So, where were we? Okay. The first one is troa. Spite. Nöba chebe gyu nyewar neba na kontrove chartope simge kune nar sembates tsöncha lembata chebe chebala sobata nöba shombeten chebe lojuno. What is spite? A part of anger. Spite is a cruel mind wishing harm, which manifests when near to one's own cause of harm, to one's own object of anger. It functions to take up weapons, punish or prepare to harm others. It is the diluted mental factor that, motivated by aggression or resentment, wishes to speak harshly or to harm physically. It is a part of anger, but it's that when getting near to one's own object of anger is when the person is not able anymore to hold one's own anger and wants to truly harm the other. So it's like I go to take something to beat the other person, or I direct myself to physically harm the other person, or I direct myself to say something violent to the other person. It is when I get near to the object of anger, and then the anger starts getting out and manifesting as a physical or verbal aggression. Okay? I think it's quite clear, right? Because one thing is anger, it comes. The other thing, it transforms into spite, which is it comes out and it transforms into aggression, physical or verbal aggression towards the other person when near to the object of anger. The second is kunzin, resentment. What is resentment? It's the mind that holds on to and does not let go of a previous experience of one of the manifestation of anger. Its function is to be the basis not to develop patience. It is the diluted mental factor that maintains the continuum of anger without forgetting it and wishes to retaliate. So basically, resentment is the mind that holds anger. We have a negative experience, and instead of letting go, we keep that bad taste in our mouth. We keep that bitter taste in the mouth. We keep that tension inside. And then whenever something comes, it comes back again and again. Okay, I think we know that very well. Okay, like there was one monk in my class, they gave him the name as, they called it the camera, like. His surname was, his nickname was Camera, because they said that, and they would make like this, no? Because after years, he would say, because that time you said this, and you remember 20 years ago that happened, and you said this thing, and that. No one else remembered, and he would remember the details about what one said and the other did, and he was with this resentment inside, you know. So this is an example of resentment, which means something happens, and then we keep in our memory inside, and we are not able to let it go. Okay? And this after creates the result of anger, of manifestation of aggression, and so on. Okay? So, the first one, which we just saw, spite, which is, it's based on or of anger of something that is happening now, or is based on an anger of something that have happened in the past, which is in this case is based on resentment. I may be near to you, and I cannot hold myself from being aggressive towards you physically or verbally, not because of something you are doing now, but because of something that you did in the past. So this is based on resentment. Okay? It's something really terrible, actually, resentment, because it destroys our happiness, it destroys our health, it destroys our relations. It's something really, really harmful. Okay, we go to the next one. So next one is called Tsongkhapa in Tibetan, which is called concealment of improper behavior. What is concealment of improper behavior? In spite of being well incited, in spite of receiving good instructions, the mental factor of concealment of improper behavior is the mind that conceals one's own negativities and is a part of ignorance. It has the function of being the basis for future regret and not allowing to come in contact with and remain in the state of happiness. What happens is that this is the mental factor through which we hide our own faults. We make a mistake, we make an action that is not correct, and we hide from others and we hide it from ourselves. So by that we will repeat it again. We don't take responsibility of our own actions. It's the state of mind in which we don't have the maturity to say, I did a mistake, I will deal with the consequences, I will make it work. No? So this makes me remember two extreme examples, which is, if you see, for example, in China, the system is, if there is an office or a company or something in the government, and that there is the president or the main person responsible, if someone under him does a mistake, and I remember one specific case of one person that did a big mistake under, going against the instructions of his boss, the boss is still responsible for his actions. So, I remember one case, for example, where the boss went to jail. Why? Because the person that was working for him did a mistake. And both of them went to jail. But the one that did a mistake, he did a thing wrong, he did it going against the instructions of the boss. But because he is responsible, he pays the consequences for anything that happens under his responsibility. Okay? Then we go to the other extreme. When I arrived this time in Brazil, in the news, just a few days after I arrived, we had one forum in São Paulo where they keep all the, the proofs, the evidences for the court cases. So some robbers went inside and they took more than 400 fire weapons that were there. Between that, there was machine guns and all sorts of guns, heavy artillery guns and all sorts of guns, which took many years for the police to take out of the hands of the criminals. And they were there for the court cases to use as evidences. And what happened? The guys came in, few of them, very calmly, and they took 400 heavy weapons. So
It's not something so easy to do in a way. But what happened? The camera was not working. Okay, let's see with the security cameras who was there. They were 2 years, the security cameras were not working. Then, oh, but this person was not there. That happened like this. And finally, when you go, no one is responsible, finally. Everyone washes their hand, and as we say in Brazil, everything ends up in pizza. Okay? So this is the other extreme, where there is no responsibility, so no one feels in their own skin the result of what happened, and finally, nothing changes. So when we do not take responsibility over our own actions, what happens? We do not change our behavior. And we continue to persist in the same errors and mistakes. Okay? It's so important for us to say, I did a mistake. I will say sorry to whom I need to say sorry. I will do what I need to do to fix the problem I make. It's so important. Sometimes I see situations where things happen and no one is responsible. And this remembers me one situation, which is a good metaphor for this. One time I arrived from traveling, I don't remember to where, and I arrived home, and it was here in Albagnano, and the toilet was completely blocked. So I called the plumber. He came in, he needed to take out the whole toilet to check what it was and so on. And there were 3 pieces of watermelon, the skin, no? The thick part of watermelon, 3 big pieces inside. And then there was one person staying in the house that day. And then I asked, you know how come this happened? No, I have no idea, you know. And then the plumber, he told me, look, I go often to people's house to unblock toilets, and it's never anyone who did anything, you know. Even when the person lives alone in the house, no one put this thing in the toilet. It come there by itself. Okay? And he said this to me like if I had put the thing inside almost, you know. And I said, no. Anyhow, what happened is that this is just a metaphor to say, when something wrong happens, there should be a responsible. We need to be responsible of our actions, because this helps us to change the behavior and to learn not to repeat again in the future. If we are never responsible, we never change our behavior. So this mental factor is to hide from ourselves our own faults. And as it says here, it says, it is the diluted mental factor that, motivated by attachment to wealth or reputation, wishes to conceal our faults from others. Because I don't want to pay the fine, I hide my own mistake. Because I don't want to have a bad reputation, I don't show the mistake or the wrong action that I did. And by not being open about my own mistakes, I repeat them again and again and again. Okay? Now let's move on, because we still have a lot to look. Next one. We go through aggression, right? In English. So, aggression. Aggression is a further manifestation of anger. While the one that we saw before, which is spite is when we get near to the object of anger and we want to react with verbal or physical aggression. The actual aggression here is when we cannot hold anymore and we end up speaking verbally violently and acting physically violently. Okay? It's when we manifest the anger through the words and the actions physically. So it's when we are not able to hold anymore ourselves and we end up saying and acting with violence in this way. Okay? I think we know that. So we don't need to go into so much further explanation. The next one is envy. What is envy? Specially attached to riches and honor, which is especially attached to material things and to our own image, and unable to accept the excellent qualities of others, unable to accept the material things that others have, their beauty or their intelligence or the attention they receive or whatever. Envy is a deeply troubled mind and a deeply troubled mind and a part of anger. Its function is to make the mind unhappy and keep it from coming in contact with a state of happiness. It is the diluted mental factor that feels aversion when observing others' enjoyments, good qualities, or good fortune. Okay, so it's a quite sick mind, envy, because it's crazy, no? Envy is the mind in which I generate aversion towards you because you have something good that I wanted to have and I don't have. So you are harming me simply because you have something nice and I don't have it. It's a really disturbed mind, state of mind. As it said here, it's a troubled mind. It's a deeply troubled mind. And out of envy, it can create a lot of aversion and a lot of violence also. Okay, so it's something that we need to avoid a lot, which means what is the antidote for envy? Is to rejoice. To recognize that I have what I have as the result of my actions, you have what you have as the result of your actions, and I'm happy for what you have, and let me work harder to get something that I want. That's it. Okay. Not going into details. The next part is miserliness, serna. What is miserliness? By being very attached to riches and honor and strongly grasping at one's belongings, miserliness is the mind that is a part of desirous attachment and has the function of not giving one's belongings to others. By the power of attachment to riches and honors, miserliness holds strongly to one's belongings and it is not able to give them away. So miserliness is the mind that holds into something that is mine and don't want to share it by any means. Sometimes we need to share because otherwise it's not good but we don't want. It's painful. Okay. Miserliness is one of the most clear signs of inner poorness, poverty, of inner poverty. Okay. When I share, it's because I have, and this permits me to share. When I can share, it means there is the joy of sharing, because the opposite of miserliness is generosity, which is one of the most beautiful qualities that we can develop. When we share, there is the beauty of sharing. And if I give something to you, it means because I love you, because I recognize the importance of you also. I share with you because I see you. You know? And very often, I'm sorry if I am direct in this way, but I see that in our Western culture, we are much more self-centered and miserly many times than in many Eastern contexts also. And we have had many experiences of this. We go to the house of someone and then the people receive us giving the best that they have. And because we are used in our culture somehow to pay for things. So if we go to a place and the price is whatever, we pay. We have not that we can even say, oh, it's expensive, but what we pay, we have no problem paying. But if we go to a place where we don't need to pay, but we need to offer something, we have a lot of difficulty. I have seen it in many cases. Like, there were few occasions in which actually I felt quite ashamed. Like one occasion especially, I remember we were in a monastery together with many Western friends. We were us together there. And then the people receive us with the best. They have very poor people. And they give us the best that they have. They receive us with so much kindness, so much joy, so nicely. And then in a moment when we say, okay, let's help them with something, let's offer them something. Then you see, it's like people taking out €2 and looks like it's painful almost. And then after going for dinner and spending 50. So, this is because, what does it mean? If I am not able to share what I have with you, in this case, what does that mean? I do not see the I have no gratitude for what you have given to me. I do not value what you have given to me. And I have give no importance to share and to help you. I'm not able to see you. I only see myself. Miserliness is one of the ways of only seeing oneself, not being able to see the other also. Instead, when I love you, and your happiness is as important as mine, if I give something to you, it's not a sacrifice. Because if I give something that you need and you enjoy it, for me it's very much like this very often. If I spend something for myself and I spend it for someone else that I love, it's the same thing. What's the difference? Truly speaking, what is the difference if I spend some money or some resource for myself or for someone else that I love? What is the difference? None. But often we create such a big barrier between the I, myself, and others, no? So when I do something for others, it's a sacrifice. And then we feel that if we give something to others and the other person is not grateful enough, then we feel that we are being used by the other person and so on, whatever, okay? When it's so beautiful to share, it's so fulfilling. And it's important for us. And the miserliness is this attitude that blocks us, that puts us in a place where we are not able to rejoice, that takes away our own happiness. And karmically creates the causes for us not to have in the future. While generosity is the cause for us to receive. Okay? Let's not go into details on this now. We continue, we move on. Now, briefly. Where did we stop in English? Miserliness. Now we have another two, which are very simple to understand when they go together, which is pretension and dissimulation. Pretension means that we show qualities that we don't have, and dissimulation is we hide faults that we have. Okay? Normally they go together. I know a person, and then I start showing qualities that I don't have. Or I try to hide the defects and faults that I have. Okay? This is basically pretension and dissimulation. Then we have self-satisfaction. Self-satisfaction basically is when we are completely taken by something good that we have. Our fame, our health, our youth, our power, our position, whatever, our richness, whatever it is that we think that is positive, and we enter into sort of a bubble of it, and we are not able to see the rest of the world and anything else. We just see everything through that. We are only able to see our own self within our own fame, and within our own power, and within our own career, or whatever positive that we think. And we close ourselves within that, and we are not able to see the rest of the reality, and not able to see others, and not able to see the other aspects which are important for ourselves. I think it's quite clear, right? Then we have cruelty. Cruelty is one of the worst of all mental factors. Cruelty is the diluted mental factor that wishes for other sentient beings to suffer. While the other aspects of anger that we had before is that I am in front of an object of anger, and then I manifest with aggression. Here it's I wish the other to suffer. It's the deep, sincere wish for the other to suffer. It's one of the worst mental states that we can have. Then the next two are very easy to understand because we saw their opposite already, which is the lack of consideration for oneself, ngotsameba, and the lack of consideration for others, which basically means to be shameless. Which is when we have no consideration for oneself and no consideration for others, it means on whatever action we will do, we don't care about if it's right or wrong for ourselves, and we don't care about what others think or if it's going to harm or not others. Okay, this is the lack of consideration for oneself and the lack of consideration for others. Then after that we have mukpa, which is, you say torpor in English? Torpor, which basically is when the mind is unclear. It's like having a foggy mind. Or we also call it mental dullness, which basically is when we are in front of something, but we don't have clarity about that, and the mind gets completely foggy. Okay? That's basically what is this. And then the other one is excitement, which is basically the mind that is not able to focus into one point and is running into all directions and looking at many other things, jumping from one object to the other. This is what we call excitement. Which these two, torpor and excitement, are the two main interferences for meditation. Then we have non-faith. Non-faith is that even though we have had experiences, even though we have understanding, we do not trust. This is the lack of faith. Okay. Then we have our companion, of trip companion, laziness, and which we take care very dearly. And the laziness basically is our inability to do what we know that is right to do. And there are 4 types of laziness. First type, I don't do because I am lazy. We are completely declared lazy. Okay? Second type of laziness, yes, it's very important to do, but I will do it later. We procrastinate. Third type of laziness, oh yes, it's so important to do that, but now I cannot do it because I have something else to do. To do something useless, not to do something useful. Oh yes, I know I need to meditate, but now I need to see the last chapter of the soap opera, whatever, okay? We do something that is not really useful in order not to do something that is actually useful. Then the fourth type of laziness is when we say, oh yes, I know it's so important to do that, but I am not capable. We push ourselves down, but actually because we are lazy to do it. Okay? Bene. So now let's move on then. Pagme, non-conscientiousness. Non-conscientiousness is the opposite of conscientiousness, which means not to be aware of what we already know. Okay? While to be conscientious means to have the awareness of what we know. Non-conscientiousness means I know that life is impermanent, but I am not aware of it during my daily actions. So non-conscientiousness, I am not aware of what actually I know. The next one is diluted forgetfulness, and this is a very interesting one. Diluted forgetfulness is basically it's what distracts us. We are with the mind concentrated into something. We are mindfulness about something. Mindful about something, and then suddenly enters one thought. And this thought that enters makes our mind to go somewhere else. So when we forget, when we go away of the presence, it's not that suddenly we turn off the presence. Suddenly another mind comes in, bringing a memory about something that we see, something that we listen. It's like one time I was reading a book very well concentrated, and then suddenly I saw that my mind was completely distracted. And then one exercise that I always try to do is to go back why I got distracted. No? So go back with all the thoughts. And then at that time, I was reading, and then I saw that suddenly my mind came the house of my father in Brazil. Then I remember why, because I remember in the house of my father there was a crack in this wall on a place. And then I remember that in front of my house where I was sitting there was a crack in the wall. Then I remember that while I was reading very concentrated, came one fly that took away my attention. The fly passed and went to the crack, and then I remember the crack in the house of my father, and like this the mind goes on, okay? So basically, the moment that we lose the concentration, whatever takes us out, this is the moment of what's called diluted forgetfulness. Is this that takes our mind out of our point of concentration. The next one, non-alertness, which are connected. The last 3 are connected. Non-alertness is not being aware of what I am doing, is the lack of awareness of what I am saying, what I am thinking, what I am doing. Is when we act without having awareness of our own actions. Okay? So, we're not able to distinguish between false and correct actions. We're even not so much aware of what we are doing. We just do, and we are not really aware of what we are doing. Okay? And the last one, but not least, is distraction. Distraction is that once we went through diluted forgetfulness, the mind starts wandering around. And it's not gülgyän, which is the one that we saw before, which was excitement, is the mind goes away around to look for objects of attraction, and it's like, oh, look that, how nice, and we are like running after, the mind is running after objects of desire. Distraction is simply the mind loses focus. And it's just like this, running around, the mind doesn't know really where it's going, what is happening, it's just, we are just like, then suddenly something happened, okay, where am I, you know? So this is the mind of this distraction, which is, as it says, the function of it, it's taking us away from what we want. It takes away us from our focus. So it's something that it is also not good for ourselves, because it takes us away from what is our focus, from what we want. So it's the mind that becomes completely distracted in this way. Okay, I think it's quite clear, right? Okay, I'm sorry that we're not going into so many details about all of this, but we will keep it for another time. So, the last 4 mental factors are called the 4 variable mental factors. And they are called variable because they are not positive or negative. They are positive depending or negative depending with which other mental factors they go together. So we have the first one, which is sleep. Sleep is the actual state of sleep. And when we fall asleep, it manifests this mental factor called sleep, basically. And it is positive when we fall asleep with a mind of love, of compassion, or whatever positive mental state. And it becomes negative when we fall asleep with a mind of anger or jealousy or whatever other negative mental state. Okay? And it's nice to see here the function that was put. This is a text which has more than 1,000 years, no, maybe 1,500 years. Long time as Sangha, and he says, the sleep, it has the function of being the basis for losing the opportunity to do something. So basically, when we fall asleep, we cannot meditate, we cannot do this, we cannot do that. So it takes us away the opportunity. This is also because in this time, the context of sleep, it has never been seen as something so important and valuable as we see nowadays. And even in the Tibetan culture, there is not much respect for sleep, actually, even. Like one day I was in Tibet and I needed to talk to the brother of Rinpoche. I was with his nephew together. And then I said, I need to talk to Kachenla. He said, yeah, call him now. And I was about to call, and then I looked, but it's already very late. It's 11 at night. What time he goes to sleep? At 8. So it's too late to call him. I said, why? Because he's sleeping. And then he said, so what? He wakes up. And then, but I don't want to wake. And then what's the problem? After he wakes up, he answers you, and then he sleeps again. No? What's the problem of it, you know? And in our culture, it's completely different. Or, for example, when Tibetans normally are sleeping with someone else in the room, if someone else is sleeping there, I enter, I turn on the light, talk loudly. If the other wake up, so what? You fall asleep again after, you know? And they really have no problems for sleeping normally. So we give so much importance, and finally we have so much difficulty to sleep also, okay? But this is just something cultural in this way. And then, but sleep is also very important for many other reasons also, but to be attached to sleep is not so good. We need to have, because sleeping too much is not good, sleeping too less is not good. As everything, we need to have the right balance, okay? But the important thing here is that it's a mental factor that if we fall asleep with a positive mind, it's a very good mental factor. If we fall asleep with a negative mind, it's a negative mental factor. The next one is regret. If we regret of a positive action, is a negative mental factor. If we regret of a negative action, it's a positive mental factor. If I regret, I helped that person, I shouldn't have helped him, that's a negative state of mind. If I say, I harmed that person, I shouldn't have harmed him, that's a positive mental state. Okay? Then we have Tsongkhapa and Chöpa, which means general examination or investigation and precise analysis. Again, general investigation is when we look at something without entering into details, general way. Precise analysis is when we enter into details to understand it precisely. I can analyze how to harm that person. I have anger towards someone, I want to harm him. So I start analyzing how I will harm him. I can have a general view of how to harm him, and I can go into minimum details of how I'm going to do. Which time, what way, which is the way, what he likes more, so how can I harm him better? I can try to go to look at his weak points. This is a very negative way of analysis, of general examination and precise analysis. On the other side, I see someone suffering and I want to help the person to be free from his suffering. And I can see, how can I help him? And I start thinking of many different ways. So I'm making a general examination. Then when I find one which I think is the best, then I go into details how to help the other person. This is a precise analysis. Okay? I can do precise analysis and general examination about love, compassion, patience, how to develop generosity or whatever, okay? These are all positive. So it's our ability to have a general understanding and to have a precise understanding about something. And this can be positive or negative depending on what we analyze and why we analyze. Okay? So these four mental factors, they are not positive or negative, depends who they go together. And with this we conclude briefly the 51 mental factors. I'm very happy that we were able to go through them. The main objective for me during these days was to show to you that our mind, and to remember myself also, that our mind is not something solid. It's made of many, many, many aspects. It's like many ingredients that makes the dish. And once we know the ingredients, we can act better to make a little bit more one, to take away a little bit of the other, to familiarize more ourselves with one aspect, to take away the familiarization with another aspect that we have. And we need to create the right balance of our mental state. And we have the mental factors that are the aspects, which are the ingredients, the parts that we need to use in order to make such balance. Okay? So, sure, we didn't have the time and the opportunity to go into details about everything. But as we read the verse in the beginning, the importance to know the secrets of the mind. We have not seen every secret of the mind, but we have opened our eyes to them, starting to look at them. So I hope that this opens the mind of everyone to understand better one's own mind, to understand better one's own self, and by that to act more carefully. Because there is the mind, but there is the self, there is the person. And we have the ability to familiarize ourselves with some aspects and to abandon others. Okay? So, I like to say I'm very grateful to everyone that we have these days together, this week, looking at the 51 mental factors. As we could see, to really go into very much details, maybe it would take a month at least, to look at with calm and to look at... I don't remember how long it took for me when I studied it, but it was quite long actually. Okay? And it is something that I just ask everybody not to leave it here, but to take it home, to read it again, to reflect upon it, and slowly to help it as like a sort of a map to understand better our own mind. Why we understand better our mind? Because the first step to make a change is to have awareness of the change that we need to make. It's like in the teachings of Lojong, where we have we need to practice the 3 difficulties, it's called. The first one is to be aware of the mental defilements when it arises. For example, to be aware of anger when anger is it's arising. But when we are in the first step, we see anger, but we are not able to hold it. So finally, we are going to act out of anger, even though we know that it's there and it shouldn't be there. The second step is to apply the antidote. So I see the anger and then I apply patience. So I do not act with aggression. The third step is to give continuity to the second. Okay? So the first step of all of them is what? To be aware, to see. So by seeing and by learning our mental factors, one of the functions is for us to understand better ourselves, to have more awareness of our own mind and all the aspects that form our mind. So we are not anymore a victim of the world. We understand that we have many habits, many aspects of the mind, and we can shape them. Okay? It's not something that happens like this, but it's possible. And the first step is to see and to understand oneself better. Okay? So we will do the final dedications now. Jetsu lame kotse raptenchi namkar trinle chochur gepadang losan tempe drume sasumgi drove munsel tatu ne gyurchi Nimo dele tsendele nime kuyan delekshin Ninsen taktu delekpe Koncho sumke jingelo Koncho sumke ngodrubtso Koncho sumke trashisho At dawn or dusk, at night or midday, may the three jewels grant us their blessings. May they help us to achieve all realizations and sprinkle the path of our lives with various signs of auspiciousness. Oma huntambala me sangye rinpoche, gyobala me tamcho rinpoche, drimbala me gendur, kyamne kuncho sumla chopa bu.